Hi, this is Ian Magaha, and we're taking a look at our midterm exam. This is the coding portion. And the first problem that we have is going to be problem 3. Essentially, really what this wants us to do is to add together two evaluated quadratics. So we are provided an initial function called eval quadratic, where we have 4 arguments. We take in 3 coefficients of the quadratic equation, which are going to be a, b, and c. And then we'll also take an argument for x, which is going to be the numerical value at which to evaluate the quadratic. So when we use this provided function, it is just going to evaluate and return the sum of a times x squared plus bx plus c. So the portion that we actually need to do, the portion that I needed to code was 2 quadratics, which is, we're given one set of coefficients for a first quadratic equation, and then we're given another set of coefficients for a second quadratic equation. And then, obviously we're given an x1 for the first quadratic equation and x2 for the second quadratic equation. And then we want to evaluate both quadratic equations and just add those values together. That's all we want to do. So the way that we're going to do this is within the function 2 quadratics, we're going to call the function for evaluating a quadratic. So the sum of our first quadratic equation is going to be, when we evaluate the quadratic, given a1, b1, c1, x1. And then the sum of the second quadratic equation, we're going to call the eval quadratic function, and we're going to pass in as arguments a2, b2, c2, x2, and then these are going to be the sums of those quadratic equations, and we just return whatever the sum of the sums is. So, I could simplify this and make it all one line where we just return eval quadratic given the first set of values plus eval quadratic, uh, with the arguments being the second set of values. But I think this is just a little bit cleaner for explaining it. So I like to do it like this. So if we run it, we get a value of 402. Well, that doesn't really mean anything to us yet. So let's go ahead and look at what we passed in as the arguments and off to the side what the math would really look like. So our A is going to be 1, our B is going to be 2, our C is going to be 3, and our X1 is going to be 4. Just so you know, that's the first set. So A1, B1, C1. So let's come over here. A is equal to 1, B is equal to 2, C is equal to 3, and X is going to be equal to 4. So we have 4 squared, which is 16, excuse me, times 1 is just 16, plus 2 times 4, which is 8. So we have 16 plus 8, plus 3, that's going to be 27. And then now we need to add the value of the second quadratic. So we're going to start with, a2, which is 5. So we have our first coefficient here, which is a, which is 5. Our second coefficient, which is b, which is 6. And our third coefficient for our second set quadratic is going to be 7. And then, as you can see here, our x is going to be equal to 8. So 8 squared is going to be 64 times 5. We're going to add that to 6 times 8, which is just going to be 48. And then we're going to add 7. So adding that first quadratic to the second quadratic, we're going to get 402. So that overall is how we add together 2 quadratics using the provided function eval quadratic.